Cowboys still can't play defense. The Panthers are good now, and the Giants are also scoring points. What the hell is going on in the NFL? Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the Holmes Field Advantage. As always, I'm your host, Brent Holmes. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Hit that notification bell before we get started with everything. If you like the fantasy content, make sure you go over and support that video, even though the rankings are pretty much useless now that we have gone forth a week. I'm also going to be posting shorts up on here, which the first one actually didn't do too bad on here. So I'm going to try to start pushing those out here, over here more. I am going to get the Thursday episode up as the fantasy episode. I'm going to try to get that up before the Thursday slot of games, as well as get this episode on the Wednesday that I had planned it. And there's tons of stuff to talk about today. We've got so many storylines in week 4 to go over, a bunch of comeback stories out of left field, as well as some stuff to go over with college football, which both of my teams decide to not know how to stop the run, and it's very annoying, but we will get into all of it. But like you saw last week, there's only one way to talk about the NFL over here. Let's get into the week 4 Holmes hierarchy. So I just had the screenshot up last time. I'm going to go through tier by tier, give it a little bit more, better look to it, I guess. I don't know. Now I'm going to be changing the tiers up every week, or at least try to with some of them. They're a little bit dynamic. And with the guys that are at the bottom, you're not going to see the Panthers anymore. You're going to see the 2 worst defenses in the league, possibly the 2 worst teams in the league. Now, for one of those guys, that may be an over exaggeration, but as of right now, they are one of the worst in the league. You gotta look at the Dallas Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns. I said that we were going to be, and sometimes good, sometimes crap. We couldn't even withhold that standard. We were so bad against the run. The Ravens just managed to out-meh us by letting us come back. I don't know how that happened. A lot of people want to call it garbage time. It was still a 3-point game or whatever it ended up being. I can't remember the final score. But I don't want to remember the final score because it doesn't replicate the actual disaster that we saw on defense. They ran the ball 45 times. I don't think they passed the ball more than 20. It was nuts. It was nuts. It was the weakest excuse of defense I've ever seen. Offense wasn't good. Once again, this offense is in love with stalling out in the red zone, kicking field goals. It's abysmal. It's abysmal. The only team that is playing worse than them, though, is the Cleveland Browns. Now, both of these teams are not among, the 0-3 guys, but this is still 2 very bad teams right now. Defensively, they're horrible. At least Dallas's offense was able to come back. Cleveland, I mean, you started off on top with a massive play to Amari Cooper, and now all of a sudden you can't score against the Giants? Dude, it's the Giants. Their RB1 went from Saquon Barkley to Devin Singletary. But they were able to outperform a lot of expectations. More on them later. They were able to climb a couple of tiers. Meanwhile, these 2 teams plummeted all the way to the bottom where they deserve to be. I think both of these teams would be beat by an FCF offense. That is how bad this defense is for both the Dallas Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns. I don't know who's worse, but it's probably Cleveland because, we dropped 40 points on them or however much it was. See, I don't even remember the win because it's been so horrible these past 2 weeks. Let's move on. So the season is over for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Tennessee Titans, your season is still over. Will Levis is horrible. And Miami, look, I mean, injuries are really messing you over. You had a couple of teams that were here last week that got bit by the injury bug, but they were able to outperform some of their previous performances with those guys that were starters. Now, with Jacksonville, you're just bad. You're just Jacksonville again. Sorry. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, I don't know what's going on with him. He's a turnover fiend. Doug Peterson needs to change something with the offensive play calling that's going on over there. It's horrible. Ever since their first year, it has just been a steady downslide. I think we saw a lot of good from Christian Kirk. I like that from a fantasy aspect. I'll definitely be highlighting his comeback game a little bit more on the next game, on the next episode. But overall, Jacksonville, there isn't much of a highlight. Your defense is non-existent. Your offense is especially non-existent. God, I mean, ETN has been so mid, so mid. A guy who's trying to carry his team right now is Devon Achane, but his team scored 3 points and they got absolutely dog walked by the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle's a good team. They're 3-0. They started off the season very well. And you got a team like the Dolphins that they probably would have beat that Dolphins team they probably would have beat that Seahawks team if Tua was there. But you can't say what if when you've got Jalen Ramsey healthy, you've got Bradley Chubb healthy, you've got Jalen Phillips healthy. You got all these guys on defense that weren't there last year. That was a reason, in my opinion, that you weren't winning games consistently at both the first half and the second half of the year. But you've got those guys, and you can't stop anything on defense. Your offense, without Tua, which most people would say is something that they wouldn't imagine, but without Tua, your offense is nothing. It's just Devon Achane. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they're not fantasy viable right now because you don't know what the hell they're going to do. And if your star players aren't fantasy viable, your offense isn't NFL viable. I mean, it's just very disappointing to see that this is what's happened to the Miami Dolphins. But I think if Mike McDaniels, if he's as good of a coach as a lot of people want to say he is, he needs to get something going here. As of right now, though, their season's over. And then Will Levis sucks. Tennessee's secondary is atrocious. They can't stop anything. They managed to get close in those first couple of games, but this one was not close. I mean, it was rough. It was rough for a good while. D-Hop looked a little bit better this week, and I think getting that wide receiver core up and going is definitely in the main focus because once they've got their whether it be their charisma going with Will Levis, whether it be the connection, whether it just be the talent, I think that it can salvage a little bit of the play that you're getting from Will Levis because we've seen him have good games. But I don't think there's much that they can do with Will Levis anymore. I really don't. You don't see this level of football and think that you can be something as a starter. Again, he was a project coming into the NFL. He's a guy that had really, really good characteristics. As a quarterback, he has everything you want to look at. The mobility was there, but isn't really flashed that much in Tennessee. You were expecting him to flash his mobility like Bo Nix has for the Broncos. And Bo Nix is already looking more promising than Will Levis right now. He's got to fix his stuff together. I guess that's what happens when your veins are literally filled with mayo. You play like it. I don't know. But Will Levis, you're pretty much ruining the Titans season single-handedly. Into the category, we've got some guys who are looking like they're ready to start salvaging their season. New York getting a big win over the Browns. Now, the Browns, again, suck. They sucked against us. They sucked against the Giants. They're going to suck against everybody. But the Giants played good defensive ball here. I think their pass rush really started to show through this offensive line for the Browns. I don't know if they're fully healthy yet. I haven't checked their injury report, but I wouldn't be surprised if they aren't because New York ate. They absolutely tore this offensive line up. I mean, when you're looking at an offense led by Daniel Jones, you're expecting a lot of things to not go well. But when you've got a guy like Malik Neighbors that is able to get open at every level of the field, he is so fast. He's an electric playmaker. He's a phenomenal red zone threat. His ability to high point the ball and to track it downfield is already among the upper echelon in the NFL. Malik Neighbors is out of this world. Phenomenal fantasy guy, phenomenal NFL guy, is really carrying this offense. I think if a team like the Dallas Cowboys can't focus in on Malik Neighbors this week, we could see the Giants taking a win because Malik Neighbors is that level of playmaker. Now, there's also a lot of different talent around Dallas that can make this game a lot more of a headache. And Mike McCarthy has had Brian Daboll's number these past few matchups. But You got to love what you're seeing. You got to love what you're seeing. Now, you might be saying, whoa, whoa, in the world are the Eagles doing? And well, it's not the only representation the Eagles will get on this hierarchy, but I will say the Eagles as a whole do not deserve to be anywhere above this tier. Jalen Hurts, what in the hell are you doing, man? It feels like the more and more you've gotten used to this offense, you've gotten used to the NFL, you've gotten worse, man. Ever since you lost the Super Bowl, it has just been turnover city, going straight down. Look, you're going to win games because you're surrounded by immensely talented rosters. It's impossible to not win games with rosters like Philly's. But overall, once again, this offense does not pass the eye test because you got bailed out by one run. One run. It was one play that bailed you out. And I know some teams, that may be all you need. But good teams going up against other good teams are going to need more than one play because those other guys that actually are locking in, you're talking about the Niners when they get healthy. You're talking about a team like the Cardinals that's looking really good. I know the Bucks just lost, but you know they're going to be competitive because they just walked you out of the playoffs last year. You know there's going to be talent that is going to be able to stop those one big plays. I don't know how much longer it's going to hold for them, but for now, I guess Saquon Barkley is going to continue bailing them out. More on that later. Cincinnati. You single-handedly let Jaden Daniels just dance off into the sunset. I mean, dude had a phenomenal game. It is one of the most impressive performances I've seen from a rookie, period, since I started watching football all the way in 2016. I mean, this is 2016 Dak level. This is rookie Herbert level. It's nuts. It's nuts, the ball that he's playing right now. He's playing phenomenal ball. I think he's carrying this offense a little bit because week one, he looked uncomfortable and it showed. It really, really showed. But these past 2 weeks, he's gotten a little bit more comfortable, albeit the defenses he has faced, they haven't played great ball. You look at what they're doing, and schematically, they're not adjusting to anything that they are seeing. But Washington's play calling so far hasn't been the worst. Cliff Kingsbury, as an offensive coordinator, might not be that bad. I'm still not trusting a Dan Quinn-led team because it's Dan Quinn. I'm a Cowboys fan. I know what he does in big moments. But as of right now, Jaden Daniels is the big moment, and he is shining. Against a guy like the Bengals, though, you've got guys all across the field that are about big moments. I just went on a whole spiel about the Commanders before I even get to them. That's how bad this performance was for Cincinnati. Jamar, big performance. Higgins had 2 touchdowns that just were not there. Joe Burrow didn't play bad ball, but this offense overall wasn't really inspiring. You stalled out more than you should have. This defense couldn't stop a fly. I mean, you let Austin Eckler in 2024, just look like the most efficient he's ever been. I mean, he ended up leaving for an injury, but I'm pretty sure in those first 5 touches, he had 50 yards. That's insane. That's insane for Austin Eckler at this age. So you got to do some work. I know in the first couple of weeks, Cincinnati is usually atrocious. I understand that. But they've got a lot of work to do. They've got a lot of work to do. Zach Taylor needs to start locking in. I'm just not overall too happy with what the Bengals football organization is right now. The Broncos, you moved up to Bo Nix, phenomenal game. I think it's going to be a fluke game. You really did just absolutely figure out the Buccaneers. Bo Nix looked comfortable. He looked really good as a runner, looked really good as a passer. But I still think there are holes in this defense, in this run game. Look, you cannot be going up big in games like these and still manage to not have a run game. It's not going to last. It's not going to last. That's how you know it's a fluke game. Because usually in games like this, okay, so their run game was really good. Bo Nix, I believe, was their leading rusher. And if not, he was up there. Javonte Williams, I don't know what's going on. Jaleel McLaughlin's about to take his job. He's just not as efficient anymore. And I think with them not having that stud, that's something that they're going to look for either at the deadline or in the draft. And that is something that you're going to hear a lot about this Denver team throughout the season. But not bad football today. You moved up a tier, but I don't think it'll be long before they start moving back down. Los Angeles, you moved up a tier as well. What in the hell did you pull that off? How did Juwan Jennings score 46 fantasy points on you? And y'all still managed to win the game. That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But great coaching from Sean McVay and company. I think just once again, Brock Purdy schematically was beat out. I think Kyle Shanahan schematically was outcoached. And you see this a couple of times from the Niners, and it makes us getting beat not look as bad. Even though they're still probably going to drop 70 points on us, it makes it look not as bad. Good job, Los Angeles, proving that we're not the only frauds in the NFC. Moving on to the Patriots. The Patriots, a little bit of a rough week against the Jets, which a lot of people expected. It's a good defense and it's a bad offense. We saw a little bit of Drake May. Didn't see much of him. Didn't see much of anything good. Ramondre Stevenson had 0.3 fantasy points. I mean, it's literally the name of the category. It's or eh. It's kind of what this Patriots team is right now. But not horrible football for the first 3 weeks. Moving on. Sometimes good, sometimes crap. Look, San Fran, I just explained it. You just can't drop games like that. You're supposed to be one of the elite guys. I know you've got all this talent on offense that's hurt. Brandon Ayuk just got paid a lot of money. Where was he? Why is Juwan Jennings scoring 46 fantasy points and Brandon Ayuk is just doing nothing? And your defense just lost Javon Hargrave, but going into this game was healthy, and I was expecting a lot better defensive game with the Los Angeles Rams really only having Kyron Williams, but they still managed to lose this game. San Francisco, this is not the same San Francisco team that I'm used to. I don't know what's going on. Seattle 3-0, phenomenal, but I will say I'm still going to leave them in this tier because they feel like the 1-3-0 team that's a little fraudulent. That's probably going to have a rough losing streak here. But then again, I think they're a well-coached unit. I think they'll still be competitive within their division. They're the leader in their division, surprisingly enough. So, but I do still think there were moments that they didn't play great football, and overall, they do need to get a little bit more consistent. They're an inconsistent 3-0 team. I know that's shocking, but they played good football this week. I do still think that it is a very up and down team. With Baltimore, again, phenomenal first half. The second half, probably the worst football I've seen the Baltimore Ravens play this year. And a lot of people want to be like, oh, but then it was the refs, and then the onside kick, and then it was just all this luck. If this was us, we would be getting roasted on a national stage. Spoiler alert, we already are, because we would blow this lead. And I do think we would blow a lead like this. I think we would blow the game, but I don't think we would have saved it like Baltimore did because they've got Derrick Henry. And this was a statement game for him to say, hey, look, you should have paid me. And it makes me want to knock this stupid helmet, even though it's beautiful, this stupid helmet off of my desk. You remember when we had a good running back like this? That's Emmitt Smith. I know you can probably read. Remember when we had good running backs that weren't old? Zeke, efficiencies are horrible. This is the worst run. This is supposed to be the Ravens' time, not ours. Ravens, good run game. I mean, I literally expected them to run for 1,000,000 yards against us, and it happened. The Raiders. Did you just lose to Carolina and make Andy Dalton look good in 2024? You need to get brought down a little bit more, but I'm being generous because I love Brock Bowers. Chicago. What the hell, man? You had that game right in front of you. Caleb Williams, I know, Rook, he needs to learn how to close games. Jaden Daniels can do it. He can do it too. But overall, what's going on with this run game too? I thought this run game was going to be a lot better. DeAndre Swift has looked horrible. The pass game, though, I think is starting to get there. Big game from Roma Dunze. We had some big plays from DJ Moore. I think he needs to get a little bit more active. I think this offense is going to open up a little bit more once Keenan Allen gets through. Cole Kmet had a phenomenal game. You're starting to see Caleb Williams get a little bit more pass happy, which is good. You want to see that from this offense. I do want to see it blend well with their run game because I do still feel like If there's anything that I want to see from this Bears team, I want them to start off pounding the ball and open up everything in this offense naturally rather than Caleb Williams playing hero ball, because that's not going to work against every team. The Colts, I think they overperformed a little bit. Anthony Richardson is still out here looking super developmental, not making great plays, but he's making good enough plays. Jonathan Taylor took over. Phenomenal game from JT. This is the breakout I've been wanting from him in fantasy football, and he did it. He did a phenomenal job carrying this team to a win. That was a very weird game, but it was still entertaining. Almost there. I know, what is the Washington doing up here? But I didn't want to put them in sometimes good, sometimes crap, because from what I've seen, they're almost there. They're almost there getting their stuff together. I think they'll be sitting in this tier for a while at their peak. I think this is what their peak should be. I don't think they'll ever be up there in dogs unless they come out here and start like 5-1 on the year. But I like the football I'm seeing. I love the playmaking I'm seeing from Jaden Daniels, both on the ground, through the air. He looks phenomenal. This secondary is still very bad. You saw Cincinnati get really, really close. But at the beginning, all you needed was a little bit of breathing room. All you needed was Jaden Daniels to dominate. And the Bengals defense was just bad enough to keep this offense off the field. They stormed back. It's still a little shaky. You need to work some things out schematically, but overall, I like what I'm seeing from the Commanders. I hate it as a Cowboys fan, but I like what I'm seeing from the Commanders. The Saints, you got dropped down a tier or two, honestly, because you were on top of the world, but now you're almost there just because you need to see Derek Carr close out those games. You can't win by 40 every game. Sorry, bud. I know it might be easy, but you can't play the Cowboys every week. It was a good game overall, but you just want some of those big plays to connect. I know there was a big play to Rashid Shaheed that didn't end up going through, but you need those big plays to happen for you if you're going to let them up, and you did get beat by one play. It sucks. I think overall both teams played good defensive football. Offensively, there needed to be more there. With the New York Jets, good football. Good football so far. These past 2 weeks, you've looked a lot better. You've looked like a more controlled unit. Braylon Allen looks great as a secondary running back to what could be the best running back in football right now, Breece Hall. I don't think he is, but he's playing good football. Going over to the most inconsistent running back in Tampa Bay, Rachaad White is horrible. Bucky Irving is getting half the amount of touches and getting so much more usage. It is amazing to see Rachaad White's fall off compared to last year. I mean, he was such a good guy coming out the backfield, and he would have big games. Right now, I'm not seeing those big games. I'm not seeing those big games at all. And I think you definitely lacked having those big runs and those big performances from your running backs in this game because it was ugly. You couldn't run the ball against the Denver Broncos. A lot of people might be dropping the Bucs down a couple of more tiers. I think it's a fluke game, like I've said. Baker had his first rocky game in a while. I think if Mike Evans can get back to getting his targets, I think this offense would be fine. But you've got one of the better corners in PS2 going all over the place for Denver. So that does play into account for their pass game overall not being as effective. But I think it was just a well-coached game from Sean Payton. You're going to get that from a Hall of Fame caliber coach. But a guy that I know is going to bounce back is a guy like Baker. He's going to bounce back next week. Arizona's almost there. Arizona's looking really, really good right now. I know they might not have the record of one of the better teams in the league, but they look like it. They look so damn good. You dropped it to the Lions. It sucks. I know. I get it. But this offense is fun. This offense is really, really fun. I'm really loving what I'm seeing from Arizona. This is the Kyler Murray that I've been waiting for. Marvin Harrison Jr. is playing phenomenal football. Trey McBride is an absolute fantasy monster. You want to see more talent start waking up here on this defense. And I think Budda Baker went down. I don't know if he came back into the game, but when I was watching on Red Zone, I know he went down and it didn't look great. That would be a massive hit if he's out for any extended amount of time. But overall, I think this team is just playing really good football and they're rallying around their guys. I think they're almost there. They probably could have finished out this game against Detroit a little bit stronger, but I do think that they're still belonging in this tier. Los Angeles, You dropped a rough game, but you got hit with the injury stick. You'd probably be dogs right now just because of how well organized of a unit this looks like. I mean, they're getting the most out of the guys that they have, and they had one of the worst skill rooms overall. Dobbins, phenomenal. Another guy that we'll get to later, Quentin Johnston, phenomenal football to begin the year. But if Justin Herbert's out, you're going to take some hits. But once he comes back, I think you'll be almost there. Moving on to the dogs. You see the first player on the Holmes hierarchy. Yeah, I said Saquon Barkley won them the game for a reason because I think Saquon should take the place of where most people would put the Eagles on this hierarchy because he's the only reason they won that game last week. So CJ Gardner-Johnson, he can go out there and chant his crap and be like, oh, Eagles this, Eagles that, and talk all this crap. Or anybody else on this defense, you should be thanking number 26. Saquon carried you. Another guy that is carrying fantasy teams right now, James Cook. Another guy. I love my UGA guys. I love them. I mentioned it last week, and he's performing like a dog. Josh Allen, what a first half. Again, another probably one of, if not the best coach unit in football right now. They're doing the most with the talent that they have, and it's not phenomenal top 5 talent, but they're playing like a top 5 team right now. Their offense is phenomenally fun to watch. Their defense is getting out there and making the plays that they need to. The same thing can be said for the Atlanta Falcons. You didn't get the job done against Kansas City, but you fought hard as hell, and that's all anyone ever wanted to see. You had a big win against the Eagles. You came in, you fought against the Kansas City Chiefs. Those are the type of wins you take on the chin and you go forward with. Bijan Robinson, in my opinion, is the best running back in football right now. He looked great. Even though he didn't have that great of a game on the ground, he was still able to make plays when it mattered. And same thing with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, those worries from week 1, throw them out. He looks a lot more calm. He looks a lot more collected. As a passer in the pocket, he looked great, but he was still able to make some, great play action throws. Drake London's still getting up there, but he's becoming a lot more of a consistent target. You're seeing that work out well, and you see big plays from Kyle Pitts, a 50-yard bomb. You love seeing that from both Kirk and Kyle Pitts. Overall, this offense and this defense, they're going to mesh well as the season goes on. They're still dogs. Even though they are 1-2, they are still dogs, in my opinion. The Houston Texans, dogs. I mean, not much to say about it. I mean, they lost a game that they weren't expected to lose, and a lot of people are shocked. I understand. Houston, you were supposed to go out there and completely just dog walk pretty much everybody on the field. But they came out there, played good football. Who did Houston play? How am I blanking on who Houston played? I'm stupid. It was the Vikings, who have yet to be on this list for a damn good reason. You were expected to go out there and prove that the Vikings are frauds. You didn't. But I don't really think it proved that you were frauds. I still think you're dogs. You're just not on top of the world. Green Bay, I almost put them on top of the world because Malik Willis's revenge game looked phenomenal. He is just in one of the best systems in the entire NFL right now. And this team did fine without Jordan Love. They're about to get him back. A lot of opponents are really scratching their head as to how they were able to pull out 2 impressive wins back to back with Malik Willis at quarterback. A lot of people thought, oh my God, if Jordan Love ends up being out for 4 to 6 weeks, I mean, they're going to have to rush him back with how bad he's going to be. They could probably sit for another 4 and be just fine. Malik Willis looks comfortable in this system because I think the system is doing a good job of making him comfortable. The run game is there with Josh Jacobs. He's getting phenomenal value. The talent is evenly spread around the field, and this defense is looking very, very exciting. They are all over the place. Shout out to Green Bay. They're playing good football. And Detroit came out there. You fought against a really, really well-coached team in Arizona. The talent didn't show all across the field. Laporta got hurt. You're still looking at what that injury is going to be. Jameson Williams was completely shut out, but you had some impressive plays. A hook and ladder touchdown in 2024, phenomenal. Amon-Ra St. Brown looked great. This defense made plays when they needed to. You knew this wasn't going to be an easy win. This was one of my favorite games going into the week. It did not disappoint. I think this was a good matchup, and I think this proved that the Lions, even though they're cats, they are one of the dogs of the league. Moving on to the top of the world. Yeah, that's right. We got Quentin Johnston and the Carolina Panthers as kings of the world. Now, Quentin Johnston's up here because he is on the greatest redemption arc I have ever seen. Leads the team in touchdowns, receptions. I think receptions, but I know he definitely leads in receiving yards. He's looked good with Justin Herbert as the quarterback for the Los Angeles Chargers. He's looked like a stud. He's looked like a stud. He is a red zone threat through and through. He is probably the only guy in this offense that you can look at and be like, you know what, he might be the ace. He might be the top dog. Him and Jake, who would have thought that Quentin Johnston and J.K. Dobbins in 2024 were going to be a part of one of the best offenses in the league throughout the first couple of weeks? But, and probably not statistically one of the best, but I think effectiveness is there. Quentin Johnston, he quieted down after Herbert left, I know, but just overall, I had to give him his props because he is getting into the spots that he needs to. I think that confidence is going back up, and we're starting to see the prospect that we should have saw last year develop here in year two. Phenomenal, phenomenal start for Quentin Johnston. And then the Carolina Panthers, you won a game. You won a game within the first 6 weeks of the season. You are kings of the world. Andy Dalton is the king of the world. I'm probably going to put the entire roster here. Deontay Johnson looked great. Adam Thielen looked good as a complimentary guy. This run game exploded. Chuba Hubbard looked like he could actually make the most out of the opportunities that this offense was giving him. Why? Because this offense was moving, and it wasn't doing that under Bryce Young, and it's not going to do that under Bryce Young anytime soon. The Red Rifle is here to stay. Shout out Carolina. David Tepper, you're getting saved by the Red Rocket. Red Rifle. Red Rocket. They're both. I'm pretty sure he has both names. Whatever. Doesn't matter. He's a stud. He's a king of the world right now. Same thing with Kansas City. Kansas City, they're going to come out here and win these games every single week. You've got Travis Kelce that is not good at football right now. He's just getting absolutely clouded. I'm just waiting for him to have this standing ovation for this massive game that he usually has, but he hasn't had it yet. I just don't think it's going to come this year, but I don't even really think that they need it to, because overall, the Kansas City Chiefs look like they're going to three-peat. The Minnesota Vikings look like contenders. Sam Darnold, where was this for the first, 6 years of your career? This is phenomenal football. I think this is more or less a testament as to Minnesota having the best scheme for any QB to play in, because anybody can succeed in it. But Sam Darnold isn't just, getting carried. He's getting clean pockets, yes. He's getting good looks. He's getting good play calls, yes. But I think he's making the plays himself. He's looked really accurate. He's looked really calm. He's going to make those Sam Darnold mistakes, but I think Minnesota can live with that because they lived with it with Kirk. They're going to live with it with JJ, and I think as of right now, they're doing just fine. I mean, they're 3-0. They're doing phenomenal. Jettas is healthy and looks phenomenal. When Jordan Addison comes back, this offense is going to take another step. When TJ Hawkinson comes back in a couple of weeks, they'll take another step. They're doing all of this with a roster that most people thought was going to have to get better as the season goes on, and they are getting better, but they're already good. That is the thing that's just boggling my mind. Phenomenal job over there in Minnesota. Overall, playing great football, offense, defense, all looks like one of the top teams in the league. Definitely one of the kings of the world. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of people are saying you might have found your franchise guy. I don't think Russ steps on the field. I want to see a little bit more from Justin. I love Justin. I'm a Justin Fields guy, even though he only played a couple of seasons. Didn't even really play there, but, Uga, I guess. But Fields, I think, is a talented quarterback. I think he's getting more comfortable. I think Tomlin is starting to trust him more. I think that is the one thing that he did not have is trust from the team, from the organization as a whole. Now that he's got this fresh start, this team looks like it's going to have one of the better seasons that the Steelers have had in the past couple of years. And that's saying something because Mike Tomlin has never had a losing record. But they are studs. They are studs. This offense is getting it done. Arthur Smith is having his redemption arc as well. It is the year of redeem because you've got demons going all across the world, just absolutely picking apart people that did not think they were going to be good. Andy Dalton in 2024, Quentin Johnston in 2024. You've got Saquon Barkley. A lot of people thought, he might, be like DeMarco Murray when he left the Cowboys, whatever. I was one of those guys. I was hoping it because the Eagles suck. But he's having a phenomenal comeback. And then the Vikings with Sam Darnold having a comeback. Justin Fields, he's having a comeback. That's the beauty of football. And that's the beauty of the Holmes hierarchy. There it is as a whole from top to bottom. And at the bottom, you see where my team definitely belongs. Hopefully we can rise up the rankings. We're not going to. I don't think we're going to. We better based on who we play Thursday. But speaking of Thursday, let's get into the next slate of games for week 5. We got some pretty entertaining matchups going into week 4, and let's just get into the matchup y'all are all looking for. Thursday night football, Cowboys. It's not going to be the greatest, but, even though I think this defense can bounce back against the Giants, they looked better than they did week 1 these past couple of weeks. Substantially better. And it's not even really the offense as a whole. It's just Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors scares me. Now, we have Trayvon Diggs. He has not had the greatest start. He's had some good games so far, but not great games. And if there's a game that I'm looking forward to him coming out and making a statement and saying that, I'm still Trayvon Diggs, I'm here to stay, this is the game that he needs to do so. I really, really want to see Malik Neighbors get held under like 80 yards. I think if we do that, we win this game by a mile. But I don't know if that's going to happen because the dude gets like 50 million targets a game. Anyways, overall, Dallas is winning this game. I know I predicted Dallas to win last week, and the chaos behind my pick almost ended up prevailing. But Dallas is going to win this game by multiple scores. Let's not confuse anybody. Dak owns Dallas. Dak owns Dallas. We're paying him $60 million a year, but Dak owns New York. He hasn't lost to the Giants in forever, isn't going to be losing to the Giants for some time now. And I'm all in on seeing, I know, all in with the Cowboys. It's something that's a joke, but I am all in on seeing a big bounce back this week. It'll be against the Giants. Nobody's going to like it. It'll be like, oh, okay, you do it too, but you had to beat the Giants and the Browns, 2 of the worst teams in the league. Whatever. You need to win the game this week. Go out there and win it. Next up, Bengals, Panthers. Bengals, come on, man. You can't drop another one. I know the Raiders just dropped one. It's Andy Dalton going up against his former team. You cannot lose this game. But I don't know how in the world you could. But the Panthers have more wins than the Bengals right now. I don't think that's something I'd be saying throughout the entirety of the season. But the Panthers are doing better than the Bengals right now. But you got T back. You didn't connect on a couple of touchdowns, and you stalled out in the red zone. The Commanders' defense still didn't look good last week, and I think the Bengals made them pay for it. I think the Bengals are really going to make the Panthers pay for it here, but the Bengals' defense has got to start playing good. I mean, I know they're dealing with some injuries, but your secondary is toast. I mean, just schematically, you're getting toasted. I mean, you're lucky that you don't have a mobile guy like Jaden Daniels on the Panthers. I mean, they do have a guy who's mobile, but he can't play the quarterback position right now, and Bryce Young. So Andy Dalton's going to be a little bit more stationary, but this offense overall in Carolina isn't meant to be a stationary offense. It's going to move a lot. They're going to put people in motion a lot. The run game, I think, could run rampant here. Overall, I'm still going to go with the Bengals. Still going to go with the better team, with the better quarterback, better wide receiver core, which should be better everything. But as of right now, isn't. But I think this is a big bounce back game for T. Higgins too. I think Jamar, they both have really good games. Wouldn't be surprised if they both get into the end zone. I think this is a game that the Bengals need to dominate from beginning to end. Saints, Falcons, phenomenal matchup. This will probably get my stamp of game of the week. It's either going to be them or the Vikings versus the Packers. If Jordan Love is back. If Jordan Love isn't back, I'm going to have to give it to the Saints and the Falcons. Phenomenal matchup. Sunday night football worthy matchup that's sitting here in the 1 o'clock slot. You've got two teams that are battling it out in what has already become one of the more competitive divisions in the league, with the Saints and the Falcons and the Bucks all being guys that are dominating, whether it be just passing the eye test or on the record or on the stat sheet. they're all dominating. The Bucks, you dropped a tough loss, whatever, it's a fluke. The Saints, you had the craziest first 2 weeks anyone's ever seen. A little bit down to earth in this last game. And then the Falcons, they've had a tough start, but they've been able to look good. Even though they're 1-2, they're probably the best looking 1-2 team out there right now. I think I'm going to go with the Falcons in this one because even though the Saints should have the upper hand here with their defense being better, in my opinion, I think the Falcons' defense is still nothing to mess around with. And they've just got more talent. They've got more consistent talent. I think Bijan is a guy that is impossible to game plan against because if he's not going to get a lot of yards, he's going to get into the end zone because the offense overall is finding an image around Kirk Cousins, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. Ray McLeod looks great. Darnell Mooney looks good as a second option. Bijan Robinson is one of, if not the best running backs in football. I think the Falcons pull this one off against the Saints, which would be a massive interdivisional win for them. Jags, Texans by 50. I don't care if the Texans just dropped a game to the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are on a Cinderella run of like unbelievable proportions right now. But the Jags are likely the worst coach team in the league. One of. I mean, if it ain't the Cowboys, it's probably the Jags because they've got the talent. They got better over the offseason. You got some impressive rookies. You've got guys that are supposed to be developing. You've got guys that are supposed to be hitting their stride. You've got a Super Bowl winning coach in Doug Peterson. And I don't even think he's the play caller on offense. That needs to change. I think he was the play caller year one, and they were good. And ever since their offensive coordinator took over, I don't even know the guy's name. I just know he's a bum because this offense is deflated. This offense is uneventful. It's boring. Travis Etienne needs to start getting his crap together because he is not playing very efficient football right now. And kind of like Rachaad White and what I'm seeing in fantasy, he's getting outproduced by running backs that are supposed to be lesser than him. So I'm looking for him to bounce back soon. I don't think it's going to be against the Texans, though. I think the Houston Texans bounce back from their loss against the Vikings this week and win by multiple scores. Broncos, Jets. This is going to be a very interesting game, to say the least. I think the Broncos coming off of the game plan that they had last week, they're going to try to replicate that. If Bo Nix gets comfortable, he's going to stay in this game because he's been actually a good dual threat. He's been able to make plays outside the pocket with his legs, whether it be improvising or just taking off. He's looked decent in moments. But the Jets have too much talent. I think the Broncos could make this annoying for the Jets. I think the Jets pull away last minute. Breece Hall might be the RB1 on the week. You'll have to stay tuned for my fantasy rankings when they drop on Thursday. But I think that the Jets pull away with this game. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos keep it close. Vikings, Packers, another game that I think is going to be a damn good matchup. Vikings, I think, should be the ones to win this game. If Malik Willis is in, I think the Vikings find a way to shut this offense down. But Jordan Love comes back. He clears through all the protocols. That ankle or knee, whatever the injury ended up being, I can't remember. If it's fine, then I go with the Packers in this game just because it's in Lambeau. And Green Bay and Lambeau, that's a hard task to beat. There are a very, very good unit that is very well coached, but so is Minnesota. I think either way, this game is going to be super competitive. As of right now, I think Jordan Love is going to end up coming back. And if not, then if a Malik Willis-led Packers can beat the Vikings, this team may be a Super Bowl contender with Jordan Love. I think I'm going to go with the Packers in this one. Steelers, Colts. I think the Colts could upset the Steelers here. Even though I don't think it should be that great of an upset. I think it's a pretty even matchup, but right now the Colts cannot hit their stride. If Anthony Richardson can just do quarterback things and be consistent, this offense would be skyrocketing levels of potential. I don't know if the Steelers defense is going to allow him to do that, though. Again, I think this is a very competitive game. I think JT gets into the end zone. I think he is quieted on the ground compared to last week, though. I think he is relatively quiet. I'm going to go with the Steelers here. Rams, Bears. Rams put out a very impressive comeback win against the Niners. You had Juwan Jennings go absolutely nuclear on this offense, but they were hurt. They don't have CMC. They don't have George Kittle. They don't have Deebo Samuel. Juwan Jennings did step up, and the Rams came back, but they came back against a hurt team. Now, the Niners, their defense wasn't all that hurt, not at least until like the second half of the game. But I think the Rams probably got the best hand that they could have been dealt last week, and they worked some magic. The Bears, on the other hand, I think they have a little bit of a bitter taste in their mouth from last game. Caleb Williams aired it out, and it didn't really amount to that final drive that you were looking forward to from the number 1 overall pick. I think the Bears come back, and I think they win this game. I think the Bears have a better wide receiver core. If Keenan Allen is back this week, they are definitely going to win. Their run game is a little bit suspect. I don't know what's going on with DeAndre Swift. I guess he was just a merchant of the elite Eagles offensive line, just like Miles Sanders was. But Roschon Johnson looks better than him, and he looks like he may be the guy that's standing out in this offense. DeAndre Swift just isn't doing it right now. They gave him all that money, and the dude is running into blockers. He can't read a hole to save his life. He's just not playing good football from the running back position. But I think Caleb Williams can will this team to a win. I'm going to go with the Bears over the Rams here. Eagles, Bucks. Now, I think the Buccaneers may be the Eagles' kryptonite because they've gotten their number the past few times that they've played. However, it's a little bit different because I think now the Bucks are favored to win because they've got a healthier roster than the Eagles have right now. They could be without A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith next week. And if that's the case, they need to look at one guy, and that's Saquon Barkley. And so far this year, the Bucks have been pretty good against the run, but Saquon is kind of matchup proof with the amount of volume that he gets, and he's just magically, super, super good again. It's annoying. It's annoying. The one year I don't have him on my fantasy team, he decides to be good. But anyways, Eagles, Bucks. I think the Eagles have a chance here if their roster is healthy. They're going up against a defense that is very good against the run. They've always been good against the run. That's just Tampa's way of ball. Now, Saquon is Saquon. He's back. Of course, the one year I don't have on my fantasy team, he decides to be that elite level Saquon again. But they got bailed off one play, and they're 2-1. And in my opinion, it looks like a fraudulent 2-1. I'm just kidding. It's not too fraudulent. They're a good team, but I think they dropped this game to the Bucks. I think the Bucks, they had their rough week last week against the Broncos. They're in Tampa. I think they take this game. 49ers, Pats. This game is either going to be a blowout or it's going to be a close one. I mean, it's not going to be like a 2-score game. I mean, it's either going to be won by 20 or won by like 3. But I think the Niners, I can't not go with them here. I'm going to go with the team with the better run game, with the better quarterback, supposedly. No, I'm joking. That's next level trolls. But Juwan Jennings, massive game. Brandon Ayuk, where are you? Brandon Ayuk, you need to start doing something. 49ers, Patriots, I'm going to go with the Niners. Commanders, Cardinals. Jaden Daniels, phenomenal week last week. This offense looks fun. I put them in almost there in the Holmes hierarchy. I also put the Cardinals there. They're going to Arizona. The Cardinals, they've got something, in my opinion, that the Commanders don't. And that's a really, really good run game. If Austin Eckler's hurt next week, he looked efficient in that last matchup before he got hurt. And then the run game kind of quieted down. It was a lot of Jaden Daniel theatrics. But I think overall this team is a little bit better coached right now than the Bengals. If I'm looking at the Cardinals and I'm looking at what they did to the Rams, who just came back and beat the 49ers, I'm trying to find a way that I can be unbiased as a Cowboys fan and go with the Commanders here, and I can't. I can't trust them. I think Kyler's the better quarterback just because of the experience, just because of the theatrics. I just think he's a little bit more comfortable when it comes to controlling a game. Now, Jaden Daniels controlled. Yes, I know. 3-week sample size. We can't overreact, but he's playing good football. I'm not going to take that away from him. But I like the Cardinals a little bit more in this matchup. I think it's going to be a close game. Don't know if it's going to be high scoring. I know the Cardinals are going to put up a lot of points. Not too sure about the Commanders. but I'm going to go with the Cardinals either way. Chiefs, Chargers. We got to see Patrick Mahomes start playing better football. I went with him as my stud of the week last week because I thought the air raid was going to do wonders, and he just continued to turn the ball over. I don't know what's going on with his level of football, but it is low compared to Patrick Mahomes standards. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are playing better football than Patrick Mahomes right now. I would say Justin Herbert is up there, but he is hurt. Most likely for this game, he will be hurt. And if it's Easton Stick, the Chiefs are going to win by like 60. I mean, it's just what's going to happen. But you never know. The run game is going to be spammed, but the Chiefs have been really good against the run. And I think overall, I'm just avoiding a lot of things in this Chargers offense this week. I think the Chiefs win this pretty convincingly. Browns, Raiders, 4 o'clock slot. Actually, one of the 425 games. It might get game of the week. I don't think it should. It's a very odd matchup right now with how both of these teams look. I don't know if I can trust Deshaun Watson to play football right now. He looks like Will Levis level bad. He looks like Easton Stick level bad. I mean, he had flashes in last game, but you lost to the Giants. You're losing to the Raiders. Give me the Raiders against the Browns. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns bounce back and win here. But I do think the Raiders do forget about whatever that loss was last week. Do you remember who they lost to? I don't remember who they lost to. Go Raiders against the Browns. Just because who wants to root for Deshaun Watson? The Bills, the Ravens, Sunday night. Phenomenal matchup. Give me the Bills, though. The Bills are so good. They're so good right now. Barring any injuries, this offensive line is run blocking phenomenally for James Cook. Josh Allen is making plays left and right. Even the games where he doesn't even score any touchdowns, this offense is still dominant. He is finding a way to cook with receivers that are either still developing or that are just career second and third options that are exploding. You're seeing a lot of big games from guys that you're not expecting to have big games already. Keon Coleman's getting into the end zone. James Cook is having a phenomenal year so far. This defense looks like it's overperforming massively. Overall, this is a very good schematic team. The Ravens, they have better talent. They should win this game in Baltimore. But because of that, because they should win, because they have all these things on their side, they almost blew it last week. I don't think they get that chance to blow it this week against the Bills because I think the Bills have a good chance of controlling this game. I'm going to go with Buffalo here. Titans, Dolphins, Monday night. God, what did we do to deserve this game? Nobody's going to be watching this 7:30 game. It is horrendous. Everyone's going to be watching the 8:15 game. Give me the Titans. No, I'm gonna go with the Dolphins. They have the better roster. Let's go with the Dolphins. It might be like a 10-3 game. That's how bad this game's gonna be. Seahawks, Lions. This has a really good chance to be the game of the week. This is a really, really good matchup. Two explosive offenses, a Lions team that hasn't run the ball as successfully as a lot of people thought they were going to, but they still looked good. The Seahawks, if they get Kenneth Walker back, have a really, really good shot to win this game. I think overall, with the Seahawks being undefeated, they should have a little bit of an edge. But them going into Detroit, this offense, I think, is going to bounce back this week. I think we see a good week from Jameson Williams after whatever that was last week. I think his usage gets back. I think we start to see this Lions team give us a little bit more of the identity. And I think they open up a little bit more on offense than they did last week. Even though they won, I don't think they played the greatest football. I think it was a little bit of a scrappy matchup. I think this matchup is going to be scrappy, but I think offensively it's going to be scrappy. I think there's going to be a lot of points put up. I'm going to go with the Lions, but I think the Seahawks have a damn good chance to take this game away from them. And this is going to be a very entertaining Monday night matchup. But just like that, we have rolled through week 4, getting y'all ready, giving my game picks to see if I know what I'm talking about or not. And based off last week, don't know if I did too hot. But yeah, those are my picks for week 4. Let's talk about some college football, why don't we? All right, let's do it. Let's talk about the Hokies. You know what we're going to do. Go through the ACC. We lost to Rutgers. We came back over nothing. I posted something on the channel yesterday. It was a short. Did you see the correlation between the Hokies and the Cowboys this week? It's nuts. It is nuts. It was almost the exact same game. They've almost had the exact same season. All the hype is all the way up here, but the actual play, the actual football, it is in the dumpster right now. It's not a great time to be in Blacksburg right now if you like football. Maybe when basketball season rolls around, it'll be good. But overall, the team is massively underperforming. Again, what you want to see from Kyron Drones, I mean, this is a guy that he's got some big matchups this. He's a guy that's got some big matchups this week. With Cam Ward, it's going to be rough. I think Miami's going to dog walk us. And you look back at what happened with Rutgers. I mean, you shut down Kyle Monangai. Bashaw Tootin ran for over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns, and you lost. How? How are we finding ways to lose games? I'll tell you how. They beat us with one play. Play action, roll out to the flats, boom, 10, 15, 20. It even worked for 63. Nuts. Nuts. You don't see stuff like this from teams that put up numbers like that from the running back position. Kyron Drones, lock the hell in, dude. You want to know if this team needs a pep talk? I'll give you it right now. Kyron, who did you train with over the year? You trained with Cam Ward. You trained with Shadur Sanders. What are those guys getting right now? They're getting talks about the NFL. Shadur's getting talked about a top 3 NFL pick in the draft next year. Cam Ward, he might not be that high in the draft, but he's the front runner for Heisman right now. You have somebody in the ACC front running for the Heisman Trophy, and you trained with him all year long, and you're the outlier. How does that feel? How does that feel to be the one guy that isn't living up to the hype? You got plenty of football left to play. You are going in to week 5. You're getting close to about halfway point of the year. You don't have a lot of time left, but you got just enough to start turning things around. We have done it in the past with Michael Vick, where we started off 0-2, or we started off a 2-loss team and then bolstered our way all the way to the Sugar Bowl, to the playoffs, whatever. We have been on massive streaks before. Yes, that was with Vick. Yes, that was with Beamer. But why can't this culture that we have built all off season long about being different, about football coming back, about all the NIL money we've poured into this program, why can't we replicate success like all of these other programs are doing? Miami hasn't been able to do much ever since they've had their glory days, but they look like they're coming back this year. You want to show that you're coming back? You end another comeback. I don't know if anybody has confidence that we win this game. I don't know if there's anybody that thinks we can win this game. Prove me wrong. Prove everybody that wears these letters, that wears orange and maroon this weekend, prove them all wrong. Nobody thinks that this is a game that you should be walking out of as winners. Walk in as winners. Forget the loss last week. Walk in acting like you know you can be the better team. This run game is going to give you a lot of hell, and your defense is not going to look good. But you got to respond. You got to prove that all that work that you did with these same guys that are Heisman candidates, there's a reason why you were in that conversation too. Prove it. Go out there and play football that is beyond what you have played before. We don't want to see the Kyron we saw last year. We definitely don't want to see the Kyron we saw this year. We want to see a completely different guy. We want to see a dog get unleashed because you've got guys like APR. He's leading the nation in sacks. There is a Hokie leading the nation in sacks. Bashaw Tootin is having a phenomenal start to the year. 3 straight 100-yard games. 3 touchdowns last game. Make yourself a name that people need to know this weekend, Kyron. And if you can do that, I'm sure everybody else on this Hokies roster can do the same. But we need to see Kyron step up because he hasn't played his best ball this year, and it's going to be a battle of the quarterbacks. Cam Ward, he is really, really calm in that pocket. It does not matter how much pressure you throw at him, the man is going to stay calm. Kyron, I can't say the same for you right now just because of the pressure that has been getting to you. I mean, it looks like you're getting pressured out there. It looks like you're uncomfortable, but I know he can be more than just uncomfortable, more than just comfortable. I know he can be collected. I know he can take over. I've seen it live. Try to do it against Miami. If you show an effort, that's all this team needs. That's all this fan base needs, is they need to see effort, that you're not there just to collect a paycheck, that you're not there just to be another name that was hyped up. You're there to live up to it. You're there to expand it. You're a guy that needs to be remembered when people look back and remember this Brent Pry era, because a lot of people are already buying out on it. And I don't want people to. I really don't, because we've already done all this work building this team up, building hype. Let's not crash it all down. Let's show that there was a reason why this was built up. And one of the teams that I did want to talk about is Miami. And let's take a look at Miami's schedule so far. Have they been tested? No. Will we see them get tested this week? Who knows? As of right now, I don't believe so, but that could change. Miami is the 7th ranked team in the nation, and I think after this game with Virginia Tech, they'll rise. I think they'll start to be in the top 5 conversation. You look at these next couple of games, they've got Cal, they've got Louisville, you've got FSU, and you've got Duke. All ACC opponents. You beat Cal, who have been a decent team this year. You're expected to beat them. I think they will. Louisville, that is the one team that I think can beat Miami. On the schedule right now, I think that is the one team that can beat them. Maybe Georgia Tech can give them a run for their money. But when it comes to trying to beat, I know Georgia Tech is going to try to beat them in the trenches. I don't know if there's a team in college football, period, without, talking about the big dogs, the big 5 in the college football right now. I don't think there's a team that can match up with Miami in the trenches. Louisville might. Louisville could surprise me. They are a top 15 team right now, sitting at 15. And I don't know. If they win convincingly these next 2 weeks, which I think they have a very, very good chance of doing so, they go into Louisville, a big road schedule here. Cal, then Louisville, and then you go back and play Florida State. You go through these next 4 weeks, you get those 4, honestly, through these next 5, you get these 5 ACC wins. I think they'll end up being a lock for the college football playoffs. Now, just like the NFL, it's any given Saturday, but big opponents here. I'm pretty sure these are all ACC guys. Yeah, I mean, it's Wake Forest, then Syracuse to end the season. So you've got all these big opponents that you really need to lock in for. And I really don't like hitching the trailer to a team like Miami because they've been accustomed to disappointing people. But I think I heard Josh Pate say it best, that they are an SEC team that is playing in the ACC. And that's not me saying that they need to move to the SEC. I'm not pulling a Florida State. They are an SEC caliber team that is playing in the ACC right now. They look really good. Cam Ward looks so comfortable. It is insane how good a football he is playing. I think the potential is skyrocketing for this team, especially with Cam Ward, and we're seeing it start to be matched. Again, South Florida, not that great of an opponent. Ball State, not that great of an opponent. Florida A&M. But you went in and you pretty convincingly beat Florida, who, again, Florida hasn't been too great to start off the year, but they've been good. They've been decent. They've went out and beat Mississippi State. They went out and destroyed Samford. They lost to Texas A&M, but that's a top 25 team. They've had some good outings, and I think obviously not that great a competition when you start looking at a team like Louisville, but they've shown enough for me to hitch the trailer to. I think Miami's slowly becoming a contender. And thank God that the ACC has another one, because after Florida State has just looked abysmal this year, I didn't think there was going to be one coming out of the ACC. Because I'd love to say it's Clemson, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure still, because that lack of transfer portal talent is going to show. But I will say I do think that we overreact a little bit when they lost to Georgia because I know how good Georgia is. They're the best team in college football. And you lose to the best team in college football, boo-hoo. I mean, Oregon got their. I remember a couple of years ago, Oregon started off, people were like, Oregon might be able to keep it within 2 scores, and they got dog walked. Georgia ended up winning the national championship that year, and it didn't even look that bad of a loss. Anyways, going over to Clemson, you beat App State a couple of weeks ago. You were expected to. You absolutely wiped the floor with NC State. I think with Stanford coming in, you've got Florida State, Wake Forest, UVA, again, all the way up until Louisville, and then Virginia Tech, basing on how they play this week. That's when they'll end up being tested. As of right now, these are the two guys to watch in the ACC. And I'm going to hitch the trailer to Miami, but don't be surprised if Clemson, you know, plays like the Clemson powerhouse that they have been in the past, and start competing for the ACC once again. I think the ACC championship could be very, very entertaining this year between Clemson and Miami. But again, don't be surprised if Louisville gets up there. A couple other things that I wanted to go over in college football. Let's head over to the number one team in college football now. That is the Texas Longhorns. What do you know, man? What a shocking turn of events. Now, do I agree with it as a Georgia fan? No, but I understand it was a close game between Georgia and Kentucky. Kentucky is still a blue blood school within the SEC, but in the conference, they're 0-2 now, and it was pretty close. They're a 2-2 team overall, and they are at the bottom of the SEC. So you kept it close with a team that's at the bottom of the SEC. I understand that. But there are still some dogs that Georgia's got on their upcoming schedule. I think Texas is one of them, but let's focus in on Texas like I was just talking about. Can Texas hold this? Can they hold this record? Because you're looking at some of the games they got coming up. Yeah, you just absolutely wiped, Louisiana Monroe, General Booty. Salute to you. You got absolutely wiped. But Mississippi State, they're going to destroy them this week. Texas, Oklahoma, that's going to be a really good game, but Texas is going to win that. And then after that, you've got number 1 right now versus number 2, Georgia. I don't think they beat Georgia. I just don't think they beat Georgia. Georgia's too good. I'm always going to have the bias for my dogs, but I think Georgia isn't going to be at number 2 for too long. But the fact that Texas has been able to make the transition and still be very competitive within the SEC, a lot of people thought that, they're going to come over here and they're going to realize that the Big 12 ain't nothing like the SEC. Guess what? They're doing just fine right now. But they haven't been through as much tribulations as UGA has. And you look at their schedule. They absolutely dog wiped Clemson, Tennessee Tech. Okay, whatever. Kentucky kept it close, but they got Bama this week. I'm so excited to watch that game. You don't even know. I've got Friday night Hokies. Not super excited to watch that game. But Saturday night, I got Bama. Hold on. Thursday night, I got the Cowboys. See, I'm only focused about college football right now because forget them. And then Friday night, Hokies. Saturday night, Georgia. And then Sunday, it's just NFL football, but fantasy team. I'm eating good this week. And then you've got Auburn after that. You never know if they could keep that close. They probably won't, though. Mississippi State, then leading up to Georgia and Texas. I'm sorry, that Georgia-Texas game, Georgia's going to be tested more. And I think if Georgia goes out and beats Alabama this week, I think they take back number 1. I think they do. And it'll probably be just swapping between Georgia and Texas these next couple of weeks until they face off and one of these teams take their first loss. And even though it's in Texas, I think I'd bet against them. I think I'd go Georgia there. And then you look at the rest of the schedule, you've got Ole Miss still, you've got Tennessee down the line. And even though Georgia Tech usually is wiped by Georgia Tech is a lot better than they usually are. And then that game, Florida comes to Georgia, but the only time that Florida's ever been competitive with Georgia is when they're in the swamp. And even then, Georgia's dog wiped them. I think overall, you can't look at UGA and not see them as the best team in college football. I still see them as the best team in college football, but I do think there are also some teams that could end up shooting up the rankings here. I believe the poll was posted a couple of days ago. Yeah, of course, with Texas being number one. But I think there's some newcomers in the AP poll. If I'm looking at guys within the top five, at least, you've got Tennessee getting up there above Ole Miss, but I still think Ole Miss could be very good. Obviously, Bama at 4 and Ohio State at 3. Those guys are always going to be super competitive. Miami representing the ACC well at 7. You've got Oregon at 8. You've got Penn State at 9, and Utah having what was it, Isaiah Wilson? I'm pretty sure that's his name. But the brother of NFL famed bust. That's so disrespectful to say it like that. But former top 3 overall pick. I believe he was second overall, not 3. That was Trey Lance. But former second overall pick in Zach Wilson. His brother is over there. It's not Isaiah, it's Isaac. It's Isaac Wilson over there with Utah, leading them to a big win last week. They jumped into the top 10. But I mean, you look at all these different SEC teams. You got Texas, Georgia, Bama, Tennessee. You got Ole Miss in here as well. They're trying to show me ads and it's not letting me scroll down. Jesus Christ. Missouri, another team that looked a little rocky last week, but ended up coming through. LSU, always going to be in there. Always going to be in there. And then Oklahoma's sitting there at the bottom alongside Texas A&M. It's just the SEC football. It's going to be very entertaining these next couple of weeks. There are some super competitive matchups, but obviously everyone's going to be looking at 2 versus 4 for Alabama. But I think a couple of teams that I think are going to be finished in the top 5 here soon. I think Oregon's going to start creeping up there. Drew Aller is playing a lot better ball this season than last year. Don't be surprised if Penn State starts creeping up towards the top 5. But I think with a win against Virginia Tech, I think Miami scoots above Ole Miss and scoots above Tennessee and gets into the top 5. And we've got our first ACC team of the year getting into the top 5 AP poll. Outside of that, I don't think any of these guys are going to move. Bama might move down, and Tennessee might take their place, and then Miami jumps Ole Miss and Bama. That's how I could see it happening. I don't see Tennessee moving out of the top 5 this week, but I do expect Penn State to start crawling up the rankings and be knocking on the door of the top 5. Michigan, you took your first loss already. You're still a top 12 team in the nation right now, but I think I have a little bit more trust in the quarterback play I'm seeing from USC with Miller Moss. I think he could start creeping into the top 10 if USC gets their stuff together, which it's USC. You never know. LSU, another team, they could always get up there just because it's LSU. They are a talent haul. But Louisville, leading up to that Miami game, I keep bringing them up because they have been consistently one of the most competitive teams in the ACC. They could start creeping up towards the top 10. Definitely not the top 5. I think Miami is the only team right now that has a chance of getting up there. But overall, I'm not seeing too much changing, but I think whoever loses this Georgia-Bama game, please let it be Bama. I think Georgia's going to win that one. I think Bama gets booted out. Tennessee moves up, and Miami finishes within the top 5. But who knows? Who knows? We have to see. Slam-packed schedule full of college football. There's a ton of stuff that will have to be talked about. We've got a ton of matchups coming up that are going to decipher a lot of opinions. And all this hype I'm giving Miami, it could be put to sleep by the Hokies. But anyways, there's a lot of stuff to talk about, but there's still football to talk about. All of these stuff that I've been talking about, the hierarchy, game predictions, talking about college football. I haven't even talked about fantasy yet. So make sure you are tuning in to the Thursday fantasy episode. I'm going to be going through my rankings for running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, and going to be giving a little bit more of a wider insight, giving you not a specific top 10, but I think I like the way I do the Holmes hierarchy, and I think I'm going to do definitely not the same thing with fantasy football, but I'm going to tier it out rather than do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, that's boring. You need a little bit more insight. You need to know guys that are compared to other guys. So I've got y'all covered with all of the positions that you'll need going into your matchups. I'll try to get that out before the Thursday night game. I should get it out before the Thursday night game, but you will have to tune in and see those fantasy rankings. I'm also kind of curious if I should do more shorts on the channel. The first one did pretty damn good. I think it had like almost like 600 views or something like that. It was pretty good. And if I can just put up quick little content to entertain y'all throughout the week, then that is something that I'll definitely be doing a lot more soon, or is that especially before the podcast to kind of lead in to certain episodes, hype up certain episodes, give you a little bit of insight of what I'll be talking about. Might post live reactions to the Cowboys game. Who knows? But y'all have to see. I got a lot of things that I want to start getting going with this channel. And I'm glad that I'm actually executing on it, especially with these fantasy rankings, which, again, see them tomorrow. And I will see y'all then. Peace. But I will have to see y'all then. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done it already, said it at the beginning of the video, but make sure you are doing it. Hit that notification bell, subscribe, share it everywhere. Make sure you are getting the Holmes Field Advantage everywhere you can. Help spread the message, help spread the word. Thanks for the love, and I'll see y'all then. Peace.